Welcome to the very first edition of INCA Conclave 2026. So let's get into it. Our first panel starts in just a moment, and it's not a gentle warm-up. So the first one is navigating the AI Juggernaut. I'll be honest, when I think about AI and this industry, my first feeling isn't fear, and it isn't excitement either, it's curiosity, because something is genuinely changing, and I want to understand what it actually means for the future of the industry. So without further ado, let me welcome our moderator for the first session, multidisciplinary artist and designer, Siddhant Gandhi, onto the stage. A round of applause, guys. Welcome. And now our panelists, film producer who has given us the magnum opus Bahubali, which is arguably amongst the most influential films in the history of Indian cinema, Shobhu Yallagadda. Welcome, sir. Producer, co-founder of MI Entertainments, VP of Producers Guild, Madhu Bojwani. Welcome, ma'am. Founder and CEO of Abandesha Entertainments, Vikram Malhotra. Filmmaker who gave us Kapoor and Sons and Gehra Ya, my favorite, Shakun Batra. Please welcome. CMO of Eros Innovations, Piyush Batra. Welcome. All right, the floor is yours, guys.
Hi, guys. Thanks a lot for taking time out today. I'm Tusid. I'm an artist. I work around AI. I've been doing pretty much all sorts of tech with AI. And design and art. And I find myself very grateful sitting in the room with legends over here and get some more insights on AI. What's happening? Where do we go from here? Are we scared? Are we not? First round of applause to all five of them, please. Now, for all five of you, starting from Madhu because she's the only woman on the panel, please take us through what your organizations are doing with AI, where are you standing, and what do you do personally with AI?
Thanks, Siddhant. It's lovely to be here, and thank you, Vishnu, for doing this. I'm probably the person who's most fish out of water in this panel. And so I'm going to talk about AI like somebody who's completely wide-eyed and like a kid in a candy store. MA Entertainment is a company that I co-founded along with my partners Nikhil Advani and Monisha Advani. And we've been in the business 15 years, and I don't think that there is a time that's ever been as exciting and yet as scary. Where AI is concerned, I think if anybody today or rather, there are very few people who will be in a position of authority, and there are, my co-panelists will probably give you many more insights. But where MA Entertainment is concerned, of course, I think just like all creators, for us, storytelling sits at the center of everything that we do, impact stories. And how to be able to tell those stories across different media and formats has always been a conversation in our own teams. How do we elevate it, and how do we do it with as compressed budgets as possible, right? Every producer will talk about that. I don't think any producer, even if they deliver juggernauts, will say that we had so much money to do it, right? So I think that where AI is concerned, we are dipping our toes into the water. And to put it very simply, there are a few learnings, and we'll probably talk about that. But we're beginning to see how in the long format or the big screen, how can we begin to embed AI? Because I do believe the tools are not as sophisticated today, or at least what we have access to. They're at a point where you can start doing stuff that is interspersed, establishing shots, etc., is what we have, to establish connective tissue, etc., in the last mile. So that's where we are at. But suffice to say that, we're just scratching the surface at MA, and certainly looking to see how we can have more and more access to it. And my personal journey, well, I think everybody uses ChatGPT. It's become like second skin to a lot of people. But I'm not afraid of it. I think the more we begin to accept that, change is here and we adapt to it, I think it can do wonders. But of course, everybody is divided on what it can do and what are the fears and dangers of it.
Sure, sir.
Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here. We work on two sides. One is my Arca Media Works, which is my production house where we produce films. I also have Mihira Visual Labs, which I co-founded, which is an animation and VFX studio. So on the production side, where we are seeing AI is mostly in the previous visual development, concept art, getting the director's thoughts out there as quickly as possible to the rest of the team. Maybe production design and stuff like that, styling. It's more of concept, conveying the thought that's in the director's head quickly to the rest of the team to get work on it. The same thing in animation as well. And definitely on the visual effects side, there's been a lot of, in terms of repetitive tasks and stuff like that, where there's able to scale, compress the work timelines. Even in animation, we are very clear that we want to be very handcrafted animation that we do. The Bahubali, the Eternal War that we're doing is a very handcrafted, handmade kind of an animation. That's very little of AI that we use in that, except maybe when the Ishan, the director, wants to convey some ideas to this team, is able to quickly do on runway or one of the models and show that this is the zone I'm looking at, but nothing more than that. But definitely when you go behind the scenes of the workflows, there is because we're building the studio out, and there are a lot of workflows, there's a lot of coding and tools that to be built, and now it's far simpler and not simpler, but far faster and easier once the pipeline team or the TD team they know what they want, and it's very fast to code and implement those tools very fast. And that's where we are really seeing real efficiencies in when we are building the studio. That's really where the efficiencies are coming in. Earlier it would have taken 10 people, we are able to do it with one developer, the kind of write the code, implement the code, and give it to the artist to work on as quickly as possible. That's pretty much the broad overview of things.
And personally, do you use AI?
I use a lot. So I use from deep research, where I want to research on some things, finding just brainstorming on trying to identify strategies for marketing or promotion, just curious to see what will throw out. Not that I take everything that it gives, but at least it's like a sounding board. And mainly I use it for research and kind of dig up information that's much more easier and gives you with all the references and stuff. And then I kind of cross-check it with the other, do it in Gemini and cross-check it in ChatGPT, just to cross-check. But that's where I use most of the time.
Vikram, sir, you?
So I represent a company called Abundancia Entertainment, and as I was saying, it wasn't this one particular moment where we said that let's figure out what we can do in AI. The core principle of Abundancia is built on two things: enabling impactful and entertaining stories, and looking around the corner, which is to understand where is the consumer going to be, where is our audience going to be in the times to come. So we pride ourselves on finding a midpoint of sort of backing progressive storytellers which also connect with an audience which is ready for the same. And in that journey, we've had several milestones that have given us the confidence to continue down this path. For example, the kind of content that we started backing was considered non-conventional at one point in time, whether it was films like Baby or Airlift or our next step into streaming. We got into long-form episodic content for streaming as one of the first in the country to do that with a show called Breathe, which went into production in 2017. And then several others like the first straight-to-streaming Hindi film, different co-production models. And a lot of them were aimed at an audience that was ready to ask for more. And as you know, in our business, demand is stated as well as unstated. So that led us to a question about what is it that we do that we can do better. So if I take the enabling storytellers part and the part about trying to understand tomorrow's consumer better, we felt herein is this revolutionary technology that's already made its way into our lives even before we knew it, and is impacting much larger, much deep-seated industries globally. How can we leverage this for us? So it starts with asking questions like, what can we serve to the audience better? How can we do that? And how can we enable our storytellers from a creative, from an imagination, from an efficiency of both time and money standpoint into delivering something that reaches out in the most impactful manner? So it's to that extent very seamlessly built into what we've been doing and enhancing that.
And at a personal level, do you use AI?
Yes, I don't think there's any one of us, whether we know it or not, who doesn't use AI, but I spend a lot of time on co-work trying to build what I can do in my own day job better, and NX2 and After Effects from just trying to speak the same language as our creators and people who are handling that tech.
Understood. Shakun? Before Shakun speaks, he's made a beautiful 90-second AI film that we'll display later, which we were supposed to display earlier, but is going to be displayed later. So please don't leave before you see that.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll come to that. About AI, I think my journey started about maybe a couple of years ago. We were working on a script, and we knew the budget was going to a place where casting was going to get tough. If you didn't get a cast, it won't get made. And the team from Junglies right here, I know I met them before. So I was like, okay, you know what? I've been looking at all these things that people are trying out, and we were working on it. So let me try this car chase, because in the end of that film, there was a car chase, which was a big schedule. So I started playing a little bit, made 1 or 2 shots that I thought were interesting. And then it's a bit addictive, right? Because you're like, oh, if I can make this shot, can I make the next one? Can I make the next one? And I honestly did not ever feel like I'll finish it. But I kept going back to the tools between shoot and writing, and over the next 8 or 10 weeks, I had a full sequence that Google saw it because it was made on Google tools, and then they came on board. And then obviously they promoted us to do more stuff. So it was very addictive, but it was also kind of freeing in a way that I did not need clearances from a studio or a producer or from an actor or an actor date. And there were 2 parts to it. One part was really exciting, that I did not need any of this. I did not need to go up to someone and be like, hey, I need more budget, I need more shooting time, I need to go back for a patchwork. None of that. That was the liberating part. The scary part was that I was doing it all alone. And otherwise, I would need a crew of 100 people. And that collaboration that you feel, you can easily make a 2-minuter without big collaborations, right? But when you're making a film, I think the real contribution is the energy that comes from everyone, right? You meet your cameraman, he has a different shot in mind. You meet an actor, and they have a scene interpretation. And for me, I was like, okay, how would that now affect filmmaking? It's going to become more and more individualistic. And so for me, it became a bunch of experiments from there on to see what I would like to do in AI and what I would not like to do in AI. And I think all of us now are heading towards a hybrid model where I think each director, creator will be able to choose what they want to stick to when it comes to traditional and what do you take to AI. And I think that'll be a personal choice. I think either legislature policy will control it, or a creator will control it, or a producer will control it depending on how much money you want to spend on the budget. But I do feel that with the new thing that we've just made, and I'll show it, and it's very small, but when I was making it, I was also doing a lot of dialogues, performance in it with AI, and some with motion capture. But now I feel we are really at an inflection point where I personally think nothing is impossible. If you had asked me a year ago, I would say, these things cannot be done, these things can be done. And I think just like kind of seeing what all is happening is just keeping me really hooked as a storyteller. And yeah, I am really excited, like everyone else here, and curious and bit scared of possibilities, you know. But I think if we shape it together and if we shape it right, I think it's immense.
On to Piyush. You don't want to share what you use AI personally for?
Man, I use it for everything. I use it. I think the most, like, I think sometimes I feel like I'm using it for too many odd things too, which is kind of maybe weird.
As a therapist?
I've done it. I have one night sat down and be like, let's figure it out. Everyone's talking about like it's a really good psychologist, but the fun part of it is like you can tell it what kind of psychologist. So like I was like, you are a Jungian psychologist and let's do shadow work, you know, and like that's fun, but it was more of a trial. I would not put too many personal things there, but yes, I've used it.
On to Piyush.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I work with Eros Innovation, and we've taken a very different approach to AI than perhaps everybody else. We realized very early on that a lot of tools that people are going to use across the world are going to be trained on Western or perhaps Chinese data, because that's where all the tools were being made. So what we are essentially doing is we are creating tools for our audiences, our people to use that are culturally relevant to us. We have essentially trained a new class of AI models that we'll probably chat about later. We call it the large cultural model, which is very different from the LLMs which are open, you know, which is ChatGPT and Claude, etc., that people are using. What we are doing is we are training these models on rights-cleared Indian data, which essentially allows people to then create stuff and have various other applications in our lives which are more culturally relevant to us. That's one part of it, which is in the entertainment sector. You know, we launched our tools with the Ministry of Electronics and Technology in Delhi at the AI Summit a couple of months ago. We're in the process of launching an app called Eros Universe, which essentially takes all of these tools and gives it to every single person to be able to create content. Yes, one of the primary problems with us as an industry has been that we've been very concentrated in certain places. Let's break that. Let's give the tool to anybody sitting anywhere in the country. You don't need to come to Bombay anymore. You don't need to come to Mumbai. You don't need to stand in the sun for an audition. You can use my tools, any tool, and you can create your own audition tape to the best of the content that AI allows you to do today and showcase it to the whole world. So, you know, that's the app we are creating. Over and above that, we're actually working in many other verticals. We're working with a lot of state governments on tourism, on healthcare. One of the applications of our AI tools is we are launching the country's first wellness AI clinic in Gujarat in 2 weeks' time, working very closely with the local government in Gujarat to do this. So our approach to AI is different. Yes, of course, we have been content creators for decades. Eros was and has been one of the biggest producers of movies in the last 5-6 decades. But what we are doing now is we're essentially creating tools that give access of this to everybody at a fraction of cost of what you would pay if you were using any other international tool in the same category. That's what we are doing. On a personal note, I use AI for everything. AI is my therapist. AI is my best friend. AI has taught me how to be a content creator, which I was not. AI is helping me pick up stocks in the market that I would have relied on some influencer to tell me till months ago. So I'm fully transitioned with AI in that sense.
Very cool. Piyush, I have a question for you, directed towards your practice of LCM at Eros. So your USP is it's not modeled on Western data. It's modeled on Indian first data, right? So what's the roadmap for crediting the artist whose works have been used or in general, because art in India is a very fragmented market, right? There are a lot of traditional artisanals who are fighting to get a credit. So when you're actually modeling, and I read somewhere you have 1.5 trillion cinematic, musical, behavioral, and cultural tokens that you've modeled the Eros Gen AI on. What's the roadmap to credit them, and sort of, do you see a new way of credit coming out? Like, say, if I've used the likeness of Mr. Gurudutt somewhere, all the people involved in that project, will they be credited somehow automatically? Because we don't see that kind of framework coming from any other LLMs or any other AI companies, right? So what's the roadmap Eros is sort of building to, I don't know, have a new relationship with credit for people, and so that people have more trust in it rather than focusing on AI is going to steal all my work if I make something new?
See, that's perhaps one of the most important questions we would discuss. At the onset, you can't take somebody else's work and train the models on that, right? That's a problem. I think the West saw, a lot of publications sued a couple of AI platforms. With the rollout of a major Chinese platform last month, you saw a similar issue wherein, Hollywood was up in arms that their data was used and infringed upon to train the model. So we are not doing that. We are using our own library of movies to train the data. I would actually urge every single producer to probably do so at some point, right? You own your IPs, you own your library. Please use that to train train the data set that you can potentially use tomorrow to create content. How we are looking at it is two-pronged. First is, of course, you use your data that you have. Don't use likeness of an actor because you don't have the rights to do that. So please don't do that. What you have is access to characters. You have access to your stories. You have access to everything else in the movie that you've produced. Use that and use that as an inspiration to then perhaps help others use it to, if you want. To create content. And another thing that we are doing is we launched something called Eros Persona with MK Stalin in Chennai a couple of months ago. We are creating a quantum layer that allows you to protect your IP and protect your rights on AI. The product is in early stages, it's getting launched soon, but what we are working very closely with IIT Madras to do is find a solution to this problem, is to create a layer that kind of identifies you as the right holder so that you can exercise that, so that tomorrow if somebody's used it, you've allowed it to use it, do you get whatever kind of revenue out of it or not. So that's what we are trying to create. And I think that's the only way to do it. Now, there are two parts to it. Either you create it on your own or somebody internationally is going to come and give you the product. We've missed this bus a couple of times in our journey, from social media platforms, to a lot of tech that has been developed that we're using in our day-to-day life is actually not our tech. We are just users of it. We are the biggest users of AI products today anywhere in the world, and a lot of these products are not your own culturally relevant, sensitive, rights cleared, data centers in India kind of product, right? So I think it's important to create your own tools to be able to then give them to people to use, and that's what we are trying to do.
Understood. Second question for Shakun. You've been seeing the way AI is sort of converting everyone into a filmmaker, right? Like, I'm sure people around you who were writers can now very easily make a film out of it. Do you think the overall standard of what great content is dropping? Is it becoming homogenized where all action films will look like the same? Is that happening and people are adapting to that? Or you think there's a new wave of audience coming in and is like, no man, I want something fresh? Like, what are you feeling?
So I think creation is getting easier, execution's getting easier. So to make a film is not hard, or at least a feature-length film is still further away, but to make something is not hard. But that doesn't take away from who's a good storyteller, right? And I think AI slop is 100% coming in. We're going to have millions and millions of different ideas of content that's going to come out. But it's like saying when iPhone came in, everyone could become a photographer, but you still have good photographers, professional photographers, and then you have iPhone photographers. And I think that's what's going to happen. There's going to be a lot of content, just like what happened with YouTube. There's a new set of creation that came in, digital came in, then with Instagram, a new language came in, and I think now that's going to happen with AI. But I think eventually, if you're coming, I mean, everyone here is mostly from feature film background, and I think that skill set is different. It's not just an execution-driven skill set. It's a storytelling skill set. You can't hold an audience for more than 15, 20, 30 minutes if you don't have a story to tell. And I think, in a way, the good thing is that writers can now, if they believe in their idea, go make a 15, 20-minute thing on their own and then go to a studio and in that way even own a piece of their IP, right? So there is that side to it. And of course, the other side is I think there's going to be tons and tons of slop. But within that slop, also, like the MTV and the Channel V generation, there'll be good slop. And I think And I think you're going to see all kinds of new formats come out of it. You're going to see series that are only Instagram specific, series that are only YouTube specific, and I think we are about to see an explosion of content. And it's going to get, obviously for audience, it's going to get hard to figure what to watch, and curation is going to become more. I think algorithm is going to win it eventually. It's like algorithm will decide.
On that point, I have a question for everyone. Like, say, our reading of demanding something from a script or a film comes from whatever we've consumed so far, right? Like with literature, with films. Now that, say, 10 years from now, when a lot of AI slop is there, do you think a new audience is going to emerge that is going to ask for different things completely? Like, say, you keep bringing up that AI doesn't have trauma, so it's not going to bring out pain for you. You'll have to still add it yourself. But do you think you foresee an audience that doesn't require trauma as a thing in films at all? The behavior of audience of what they're consuming is changing because there's so much out there now?
You know, I know I said AI doesn't have trauma, but now I go back, but AI has learned trauma from all the readings, so it understands when you tell it, if you tell it Guru Dutt film kind of relationship dynamic, it understands what that means, which is weird. And if you try AI enough and you go back and forth, I think what's needed is your understanding of the skill. And if you know your skill, you can keep pushing, and it'll keep taking you further. So at some level, yes, it's made it easier. And I think sometimes it feels like you're cheating because you can get to something so much faster. So I think I'm perpetually confused with AI. Like is it, how much of it is me creating and how much of it is being created because it's going back and forth? So it is a confusing place, I can't lie about that. But I think it is a new place of creating. And I think this happened to me when I was just starting my career. YouTube had come in, and AIB, which is Tanmay Bhatt and the gang, were making these really fun viral videos. And when I made that, I felt really free. It did not need any money. We made a film with Alia, who was just starting out, that hit 10 million views. And I got more attention because of that video, which felt like we were just playing. And that gave me my next film. So I feel there will be new creators who will come in from having created a 5-minute thing, which will look so fun that you'll be like, hey, I love this. What else can you make? So I think from a traditional place, you can say this was so easy, how is this filmmaking? But I think a kid who's 15-year-old isn't going to be like, oh, I'll move to Bombay, I'll assist for 10 years, then somebody will give me the money, then I'll try it. He's going to be like, no, F that. I'm going to sit in my town and I'm going to make something and let's see what happens. So I think there is going to be a lot of back and forth, a lot of arguments about what art means today. But I don't think any one of us really own that term. And I think people will define it on their own as we go forward.
You want to add something, ma'am?
Yeah, I think, there is going to be a huge problem of plenty, because the entry barriers to what Shakun just said, right, creation, are pretty much disappearing. And it's creating a level playing field. So one is, the fallout of that is discoverability, right? Today, a very common problem is actually finding something, or for something to break out is even harder. And when you go on to look for content, it's almost sometimes looking for a needle in a haystack. So one is that. The other fallout of it, I think from an audience perspective, is the attention deficit disorder. I think it's going to get that much more accentuated. And where algos are concerned, I think, again, it comes back to discoverability. The fear is that will the system prompt you to see more of what you're seeing, and therefore does it make you very restricted in the kind of content you consume. But I think it can also be very personalized. The world in which you have so much available, I think customizing content to personal interests will get even that much more heightened.
Like when you say personalizing content, do you mean like people can choose what character
Absolutely.
is the hero in their
Perhaps.
version of, say, Bahubali?
Perhaps. I think that, the tech will probably get as sophisticated.
How far do you think we are from there right now?
Well, I think we are already seeing, today, we are already being fed content, whether it is on your social media platforms, whether it's in the shopping that you do. I mean, I'm looking at a product and they're just showing me more of the same thing. If I go on to any of the usual suspect OTT platforms, there's like this layer, which says, because you watch this, now watch all of this. So it's a different kind of control, really.
One question to all of you. Everyone keeps talking about how AI is reducing the budget, right? Overall, 70, 80% going, etc., etc. But when I meet technicians, they're getting paid lesser than what they were being paid. Yes, film price, like tickets are more expensive than they ever used to be. OTT rights are like record-breaking right now. Where does that difference go? Who's making that money? Because technicians aren't earning. They're literally doing 10 jobs in one go. Is it like a strategy to use to optimize more profits for production studios? Or is there a gap that people are unable to understand?
I think where you started off saying that production costs have come down by 70-80%, I don't think so.
So people who are just throwing that term out there is...
I haven't seen any reduction in costs, as of now at least. Maybe in the future. But a reduction in times, maybe, ability to convey something, but reduction in costs, I haven't seen. So it's too early to talk where that money is going. In fact, I was just telling the other day, when we made Bahubali, it was 200 crores of film. 400 crores, of course, there's inflation, and I added all that. Today, Rajamouli is making his next film, it's upwards of 1,000 crores. So, for quality to quality, you want to achieve the same quality, I don't think the costs have come down. I mean, you can make something cheaper, you can make them expensive, but if you keep the same bar for quality, a certain level of creativity, a certain level of quality, a certain level of thing that you want to achieve, a cinematic quality, I think the costs are pretty much there. And I'll say something also, like Shakun is an exception here, right? In the sense, Shakun is a creative mind who has also interest in technology, who is also interested in AI. He's able to keep up, understand, learn the tools, and work the system to make what he wants. And that's a rarity. That's an exception. That's not a common thing. So to assume that everybody who has access to the same tools as Shakun has can do what Shakun does is not right.
Do you agree with that, Shakun? Do you think your skill set is a rarity now, considering
I'm
how...
not saying skill sets are a rarity, in the sense that he has a creative mind, right? So he has a creative vision, and he also understands the technology. So what I'm saying is, someone out there that Shakun referred to it, the younger minds, younger people who are now getting used to working on technology, but also have a creative mind, are also patient, are also persistent, and also keep working on it. They need to do all this to get something out, especially in the long form thing. Shakun has been at it for 3 years. It's not like you prompt something and I'll get something out. It's not magic. That there needs to be patience, there needs to be persistence, there needs to be that passion, that creativity, and understanding those tools to get what you want. And all that, again, translates to time. Time translates to money. So it's, it's not as... sometimes people get caught up like, it's very easy to get something very nice, very good, when anything is okay for you. Let's say, I want a nice couple sitting on a coffee table having a thing with a beautiful sunset. It'll give you a very beautiful thing, but there are no boundaries to it. But when you start saying, but that's not the way I want it, I want him to look a little tired, little harsh, they don't have to have a harsher conversation. You exactly start getting into what you want. The creator has a certain... It's not possible. That's where it is.
Have you felt that what you're doing is something that less and less people will be able to do? Or do you think, like in my field, I come from design, right? Like every year, 30% of our industry is being automated. Like a lot of illustrations you can do in like 2-3 seconds that would take like 3 hours for you to sit and make. Have you felt that? Have you felt that sense of competition broadening, or is that same for you?
First of all, thank you, sir. Such a huge compliment coming from me. Coming from you, I remember, I had done an interview with Shobu sir, I think 8-9 years ago, about virtual reality. because I was really interested in virtual reality, and you guys were one of the first people to do a virtual reality version of Bahubali trailer. And at that time, I remember feeling, wow, these guys are so like curious and advanced with what they are doing, and I think I've always then wanted to stay with it. Secondly, I think I agree, in AI, there are a lot of happy accidents. But if you're not from a creator or a storyteller bent of mind, then those happy accidents will end after a point, right? You have to have an overall vision for a film, and AI can't take you there. AI can give you one good shot, two good shot, and I'm sure you've had the same thing, right? So sometimes you meet these young, talented kids who can create 3 or 4 really good things, but you tell them, okay, now let's tell a 5-minute story, and they're completely lost. They don't know what's the next shot. Why should I hold this shot? Why should I cut this shot faster? And I think that's where traditional learning is so essential. And I don't think I could be so comfortable with AI if I did not have the understanding of the traditional format. That means I know why I wanted a 50mm lens versus a 25 versus an 85, because I know what's the edit pattern I want to go with. And I think that's where I'm feeling you can very quickly see a non-filmmaking mind trying to make something. It's a bit haphazard. It's a bit not put together. Versus a filmmaking mind who's really watched a lot of movies, processed storytelling. But I think, having said that, yes, it gives you a huge advantage to have that learning. But having said that, I think there will be more and more people who will be doing this. I think it's like what happened to music, right? You needed a big orchestra, and you needed live performance and singers. You know, you needed to know that. And then came, new musicians on Logic Pro with just like a little synth in their room and playing that. And I think you will see a rise of that filmmaker, what I would call a living room filmmaker, somebody who's making it from their living rooms. But I think that time, in the next 2 years, we'll start seeing something. And I'm sure somebody will surprise us with a phenomenal output in the next 1 year. But coming back to your question, where's the money going? I don't think, at least at a film level, we've got to a monetizing place with AI. We are all experimenting, we are all trying. I've done a couple of commercials all entirely in AI that we got paid for. So yes, we are monetizing it now slowly. But as it happens, and you work in advertising too, because now using AI, they're also like, no, we want to pay you much less. So eventually it's not that money is going anywhere, that it's just becoming, the losses are becoming smaller. The company which had bigger losses, okay, now we have slightly lesser losses. That's what's really happening.
So no one's making money. That's nice.
To this point, what I'd like to add is that you asked a question about is the benefit of these alleged lower costs, and I completely agree with Shobhu that this isn't already hitting our bank accounts to a 70-80% higher margin, but the actual benefit will get passed on to the consumer, as happens with every technological advancement when the overall cost of doing business goes down. So it needs to start from the creator and end on the screen, which includes distribution, which includes physical production. That's when the value chain benefits and both things happen in a healthy manner. You've got better margins operating. I mean, I'm not proud of the fact that our industry has some of the lowest margins for the size of the industry on a like-to-like basis with others, and the fact that the consumer will benefit in terms of reduced, not just ticket prices, but cost of access of that content. And to the other point about Shakun being a rarity, yes, he is. I will endorse that. I have seen his work on this front for many years, very actively now. But one of the things that we are experiencing now that we've got multiple films which are being fully generated in AI and in hybrid, the key difference is the human lens. It is about a filmmaker who knows how to make a film. He or she is the one that's making the difference in how the technology is being leveraged. Yes, there will be living room filmmakers. What I foresee there rapidly happening is what, for example, software did to coding. You will be able to have the backbone to code better than a lot of your peers, and therefore the innovation is happening that somebody sitting out of somewhere has found the right access to the code and created Spotify. That is what technology will enable, but at no foreseeable future, and I don't see 10 years as a foreseeable future, it could be 10 days to 6 months to 2 years. In that period, I don't think the human lens can ever take a backseat.
So, you were sort of the first people who made a structural investment into AI. Plus, you believe in the coming few years, 1/3 of your company's revenue is going to be AI generated. What does that P&L actually look like? Is it theatrical? Is it depending upon streaming, memberships, IP licensing? Like, what does like an AI company, like you're saying 1/3, I'm saying if you're able to achieve half of it, that's still a big chunk. Like for a newcomer who's just starting out an AI studio, what does that roadmap look like? Because for them, the current paths are conventional paths. Are there new paths that you're going to sort of pay for people to monetize their AI strengths? Like, what does your roadmap look like?
To your first question, so the reason for the structured commitment of time, energy, effort, financial resources comes from the fact that this is a strategic play for us at Abundantia. This isn't about taking a project and pre-visualizing it or understanding if a particular piece of production can be done in a cheaper manner or understanding if something can be fully generated. Yes, these are all very important aspects of what we do. But the whole purpose of partnering with a tech-first company like InVideo on this particular front and creating a studio is that we take away the fragmented approach, which means that you are not digging a well every time that you're feeling thirsty, that you see an opportunity. It's for us to be able to look forward into the future and say, how are we doing different things? It's not about taking the stories that people have been telling or have been watching and just doing them in a better manner. What's the kind of stories that we've just not been able to tell? How is the imagination of the storytellers being unlocked? And for that, you need a dedicated, focused, structured effort. You need development funds available. You need tech partners who are willing to come in. InVideo here is coming in with the investment on the tech side for us to be able to continuously, consistently push the boundary of this. Because yes, you'll have a rogue moment. You know, any day now a breakthrough film is going to come in and we're all going to be, wow, this is the one that changes everything. But as a business, as a sustained player, are we able to do that on a scale? Is why that commitment is strategic and structured. To your second point about the contribution to revenue. See, it's not as simplistic as saying that if you're making 10 films, we'll now make 3 which will be generated in AI or largely supported and therefore it will happen. For us, the play of artificial intelligence is through our value chain, which means that yes, there is faster development that's happening. So our cost and our time, because one of the things we don't value enough, and my, the producers alongside with me will second this, one of the things we don't value is the time that we take to develop, right? Anything between 6 to 60 months goes into developing scripts. How can we expedite that? That's time of opportunity, cost of opportunity. So it's a factor of all of this. It's about how are we leveraging AI for standard production, building hybrid. There's a film that we are working on in which 70% of that production is live action, conventional, physical pipeline, and 30% of it is completely virtual workflows and a virtual pipeline from scratch that's feeding into the overall film. So when we are estimating this chunk of our revenue to come in, it actually is unlocking across the value chain. I see cost of outreach in terms of what we do as marketing becoming significantly lesser. So when you're envisaging work at a holistic level, leveraging AI, it needs to happen across the board. It can't be one part that's happening. It's like saying that physical films got replaced by digitizing the output and therefore the cost of filmmaking came down. That won't happen.
Cool. One question for Piyush. You've been silent for a bit. How does a production studio become a tech company? Like the way Eros has had that transition. Because you see Netflix also sort of starting as a tech company and then leading down towards a production. Like, why is that bridge necessary for any company?
Very honest answer, to survive in today's world, if you don't become more tech forward, you at some point would get left behind. It doesn't have to be just about the company. I'm assuming, I actually believe it holds true for all of us in our personal lives as well. But very specific to why we did it, my founder, Kishore Lula, he's been very tech forward since I can remember. Eros was one of the first OTT platforms in India. Eros now came out in 2012 because before even Netflix or Prime Video came to India. So, that way the transition has been ingrained in our DNA in that sense. So, I think last year when we realized, and I was giving this example to, Madhu before, that, when an incident occurred wherein he realized that the output he was getting while using some of these foreign tools wasn't very culturally sensitive to us. That is what led for him to say, hey, listen, how do we create something that represents us as opposed to what somebody else thinks of us, correct? And I think that's how we started building these tools. It's a lot of work. Creating these tools is, if you think using these tools is difficult, you should imagine how difficult it is to actually create them. We've been working very closely with IIT Madras, and we've been very lucky in that sense to have found the best mentors to guide us through how to do this. We have a tech team set up in Chennai that's actually helping us create all of these really fancy tools that people can use very easily to create content, and that's just one part of it, like I said. But extremely imperative to do it. You don't do it, then difficult. I'll give you a very funny example on this. We were actually having this conversation because we are all mostly creative people in this room. We're mostly creative people in this room. We've been using Microsoft Office since whenever. Most of us never learned Excel formulas, right? The problem was adoption. We always used Excel, but if I were to give a pivot table even today to most of us, you'll panic, right? You wouldn't know what button to press. You would go to a finance guy to say, hey, listen, crunch these numbers, what am I supposed to do? It's the same thing with AI, right? The tools have been given to us. We have to figure out how to use it to the best of our advantage. You have to learn, you have to upskill. Every company needs to adapt. The question today is not whether somebody in your team has used ChatGPT to frame a reply. What a rubbish argument. The question is, do you have an enterprise software that is given to the whole team? Correct? On day one. Is that part of your onboarding today? I think that's the conversation that everybody needs to have in terms of adoption. And that's the only thing that's going to change. We were talking about, IPs, etc. earlier. I mean, the point is to give access to every single person in the country. You can't replace talent. A good director would still be a good director, right? But the tools that you're using to direct are going to change. And I think that is the shift that AI is getting. You are not saying that, hey, listen, talented people would suddenly not have work. No, but a lot more talented people who today don't have work will be able to showcase their creativity using tools. And I think that's the shift that we are going to see over the next couple of years.
I have a sensitive question to ask you now that I have your consent. Ranjana. What do you have to say about that? I'm pretty sure you know what half the chunk of people are thinking outside, their pros and cons. Do you have anything to say towards that whole fiasco?
I wouldn't call it a fiasco. I wouldn't even get into who's right and who's wrong. At the end of the day, this is the larger point of IP protection. My short answer would be, listen, it's our movie, we own the IP. My longer answer and a slightly different answer would be, we've got to create systems that allow creativity to shine through the population. What is it that we're trying to do today that's very different from everyone? And I'm extremely proud of it. Take any movie that I have. Let me take Rangila, for example. It's an old movie. It's an iconic movie, correct? Can I take the character of Rangila, give you the access to it, to Munna, and say, hey, listen, if you were to reimagine his life, how would you do it? Now, half of us could get up and say, hey, listen, how dare you do it? It's an iconic IP, how can you touch it, etc. But the other half would say, hey, listen, my creativity would allow me to do something extremely different with this. Can I get a try? To be very honest, I don't know if any of you used our app yet, but when you will see that's the light and day difference between what we are trying to create. We are trying to empower people who are not music producers today to be able to create music, produce music on the lines of what exists and what you like already, right? One of the biggest pathways to adoption is also familiarity. The characters that you love, the storylines that you love, the sense of lighting and mood that you love, we want to break down those barriers of entry for you. And I think that's what we are trying to do largely with our AI tools.
What do you guys think about the alteration of existing films using AI?
So I actually have a point of view on that, because that was one of the early things that happened in the country. And I think consent is going to become a very big part of all our contracts as creators. And I think what happened, fortunate, unfortunate, is that it's not an AI problem, it's a contract consent problem. So I think as creators, we'll have to be very clear while signing a film. Can you use my characters that I have written for something else in the future, or do I hold the consent for that? And I think that's going to happen to every artist. Actors, directors, storytellers. Our contracts are going to get very, very important on those lines.
Shakun sir, I have a question for you in that sense. As a producer, big stars get royalties, right? Like some stars are bigger than the films that they do. Do you think with AI coming in, facial recognition, etc., royalty system is going to change overall? Will smaller character artists be able to claim royalties later on? Because earlier, quantifying their work was difficult, but with AI, it will become easier and easier to quantify, hey, you were in the film for these many seconds and this much royalty is owed to you. Do you think that systematic change is going to come, or is it just going to stay the way it is?
So I don't know if I got the question right, because as of now, we only pay, unlike the West, at least I don't know how it works in the West, but here, when we produce a film, we pay per film, per his time and thing. We normally don't have any royalties, and there might be some profit sharing if he's a big artist, but there's never a question of
profit sharing, sorry if I use the word royalty, but like how lyricists or musicians get royalties, do you think film actors will eventually start getting it?
Could be. There is a possibility where, because if the derivatives, there's a derivative work that is using in other places and stuff like that, where, again, Shakun was saying, it all boils down to how the contracts mature and artists ask. But to be honest, going down the ladder to all the way down, I think is a little far-fetched. But we never know, yeah.
Sorry,
I was just, Shobhu sir, just continuing with that. I think what's going to happen, there are going to be multiple different formats, and the structuring of those formats and how the waterfall will be structured. I think what's going to happen, like music, if you go on Spotify, you play a track, sometimes there are 3 artists who've composed it together, and the royalty goes to all 3. And every time it gets streamed, they all get money, right? I think there will be what I would call AI forward platforms, where let's say 5 creators came together, made something, they didn't charge anything, or they put their own money, and the monetization of that will automatically go to multiple people. But I don't think that may happen to every form possible. I think it'll vary.
No, short answer, definitely there'll be new models of monetization. Now, how much that will trickle down to who will all depend on how much volume or how much, consumption is there to justify that, if there's, but I think there'll definitely be new forms of monetization and new ways to monetize and new methods of monetizing and stuff like that.
So you guys all work across both mediums, right? You're exploring AI, you're exploring traditional filmmaking side by side. What's your meter? How do you choose this script is AI appropriate, this script is not AI appropriate? Because the grander the script, it's supposed to be easier to do with AI.
I beg to differ. I don't think that's the lens that's necessarily the best for us going forward. Currently, the thought process seems to be that anything epic, anything grand, anything requiring massive investments of sets and production and post-production is the one that we should attempt with AI to begin with. I think therein what we are trying to do is improvement. We are not trying for disruption. To me, the kind of stories that need to be told leveraging AI are the ones that are truly freeing imagination. The ones that are completely unimagined even on the audience side. This is a tool and its application that frees up iterations. You know, one of the things that we all struggle with, especially creators, is you've got a limited time, a limited budget, you've got to make it happen in that. What AI frees up is iterations. How do you, in many ways, it's like gaming. You're being led by the technology into creating worlds that you haven't imagined before, and within that, iterations that you haven't imagined before. To me, it's newer genres. It's breaking existing genres. That is the right way to look at what AI can unlock for us. That's a filter that we apply to all the stories that come in. Yes, our first of the block is a Chiranjeevi Hanuman. We've got a couple of other conventional stories that we're telling. But they've served as great test beds for us to now know that the real value will come from work and stories that are truly not seen or imagined so far.
Madhu ma'am, one question to you. You've been an investor also. Actually, all of you are somewhere at the table of being an investor. What's the one thing that you look out for in a budding team doing something with AI? I understand filmmaking is subjective, like you have to be a good filmmaker, you can use the tools, but there are other cohorts of our industry, right? Like there's post, there's like different things in pre-production and post that happen. What are the two different things or two different things that you look out that, hey man, these guys have an edge over everyone else?
So I think if you're specifically talking about AI, I think the ecosystem is still very nascent. And of course, there are early adopters. So I think first is really the ability to innovate and how are these people using the tools. And if they are operating as an ecosystem, an independent organization, and we are coming across a lot of them and they're very, very young. And it's not just about playing with the tools, but also being able to figure out monetization around it. And I'm just going back to the earlier question where you were talking about, royalties, etc. I mean, YouTube is a great example, right, in terms of monetization, where a creator, an independent creator, was able to, actually monetize where it was not possible through traditional mediums. So when it comes to investing, I think it's more about, in some places it's about the tech, in some places it's about the people, and really what they're able to do with it, especially in this space, where this space is concerned.
Can I chime in on this for a very quick second? On monetization, extremely important. I think one of the biggest problems with our creator economy has been that monetization has been restricted to the top layer. You could have 100,000 influencers that are creating content creators that are creating content, but only a very small chunk of them would actually get brand deals because there's no other way for them to make money. Except perhaps one or two platforms. A lot of social platforms today do not allow for nano, medium-sized creators to probably make meaningful revenue, and I think that's the shift that AI will probably bring in. It will not just let you create content, but specifically in the creator economy, it will also open up pathways for monetizations because brands will now have access to you directly. So I think that's a very important shift that we're going to see in the next 1 or 2 years or so. Also, you were talking about what do you look in a team. Shakun was earlier talking about how he uses different lenses while he's filming, right? I think that's the skill that you can't take away from people. So I think prompting is going to be one of the singular most important tools that creators will use using AI, because unless you can specifically tell AI what is it that you want it to do, it will not give you the desired output, right? You will create 10, 20, 30 iterations, burn credits to realize that this is what you wanted. So I think your vision, the clarity of creatives, I think is extremely imperative that you bring that to the level of prompting that you do. That's the one skill that everyone should look out for.
One question to all of you, like say, we are going towards automation of some sort of content, right? Like people are going to be, it's going to be way easier to make it. Currently, OTTs are like your partners. They're helping you reach different people. Do you think they're going to become competitors? That they can use all the data that they have on their platforms and eventually figure out, okay, if we've reached that stage of having films without any actors, having films without any real locations, do you think they're going to become direct competitors for you?
At least I don't, I mean, it's not about them. It's about whether really you can create content just because you have data or training data. I don't think, at least I can't imagine a scenario even at least in the next 5-10 years. I mean, human creativity, human ingenuity, human mind, human emotion. I mean, I place all bets on that. I would say that.
You guys?
No, I think when generic will become so easy to create, you know, if you're only going to rely on AI to keep creating from what it has learned, very soon you will hit a threshold where it will start looking, feeling the same. And I think as we've seen, technology has changed for 100 years every time we do something. I think the only thing that wins is freshness. So a storyteller is why a content is interesting, a film, I think this is the thing. I think the benchmark to become a filmmaker is going to be very easy, but a benchmark for becoming a storyteller is going to go up. So I think that's the differentiation. I think storytellers will win. If you're just a filmmaker, not a storyteller, yeah, you can make content. I don't think that's going to be a problem.
So I agree with what Shobhu said. And more pertinently to your question, where the platforms are concerned, I think they started out as a great, distribution mechanism and alternate channel and aggregators of content. I think that will continue. I don't think that's going to change. But what will happen is that they will continue to claw into the assembly line or the different parts of your supply chain. So when you look at today a platform saying that they are investing in studio floors or they are investing in a tech company or something that will power AI. I think at the end of the day, they will look at the ecosystem to Shakun's point, to power the storyteller. And of course, look for efficiencies. I don't think that they will compete with creators, probably power them, and influence what gets created and what gets consumed. I think that we will see much more of that.
Ma'am, I have a question for all three of you because I know you've dealt with this a lot. Do you think right now to safeguard ourselves from the risk of making a theatrical, because theatrical you don't know if it's going to recover, we are constantly relying on OTT. But if the cost of production can come down to something that you guys can easily risk, I think that's the other thing. You will not need to go to OTT for everything. If you can make something that you truly believe in, and I think that's what's happened over the years. There's been a lot of assembly line production, and that's part of the reason I was leaning towards AI, because I was like, if I keep leaning onto studios, they'll keep telling me to do checklist, do this, then I can recover the money. But now if you can make a film for sub 20 that looks like it's a 200 crore film, would you even need to go to OTT right away? You'd be like, no, I'll take my chances at a theater and then go. So I think it's going to be the other way. I think OTT will have to lean a lot more on producers and storytellers now than ever before,
So I think our time's up, but I have one last question and dedicated respectively to each of you. So Piyush, for you, what are the 2 films you'd love to alter with AI?
Tricky one, brother.
I want to alter every single movie that I have the rights to using AI. Not to, and not just me. Yes. I want all of you to sit and alter it as well. And why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Shakun, for you, you have an opportunity to work with the real actor or the AI actor. Which one would you choose? Deepika Padukone.
Deepika Padukone, of course.
Real? Siddhant Chaturvedi.
Real. Any actor that I've worked with, or I'm yet to, I'll always want to work with real actors. And the video that I want to show you, I mean, we can play that right after this is done. That is all AI created. The thing is, if I'm going to wait to make something for 2 years because I don't have an actor, I will go choose an AI actor. But if I can have the opportunity to work with a real actor at a budget where I can make a film happen, I'll always choose a real actor.
So if it was Salman Khan, then what would you
I don't
say?
think he's choosing to work with me, so that's gone.
Vikram sir, for you, you've literally staked up everything, right? Like your reputation, capital for AI. If there's someone in this room who's still not convinced with AI, what are you going to say to them?
Actually, there will be people in this room. There's a majority that still isn't, because true to our industry, we are looking at, and why only our industry for that matter, any new technology that comes in, there's apprehension. My entire point is, stop looking at AI as an expert who's giving a speech and you're waiting for it to falter. You know, most creators, most people in our industry are looking at AI and saying, see, that generated it so badly. Look at how badly that turned out. That script, oh my God, this looks so fake. It's so unreal. Stop trying to punch holes into whatever AI is doing. Look at it as a bunch of interns that's available to you. Look at the power of what it can unlock for you and then go figure out for yourselves. But do it really fast, because you're going to be out of a job before you're able to solve it if you don't do this quickly and well.
I just want to add an analogy to this. If anybody said that, I would ask the room, is there anybody who has not taken a flight or been on an aircraft ever? So that's technology, right? An aircraft was invented so that you could travel faster. And of course, I mean, it's one of the most safest modes of transport today. So it's akin to that, really. You cannot resist change. Change is growth. It's a question of really the barriers to adoption of those tools. I'm not saying that everybody knows how to fly an aircraft, right? But it touches your life. But this would probably be, power you to be able to fly, So I just wanted to add that.
One question for you. You come from HR, right? It's 2030, AI has taken over. What's the perfect film studio look like? Like, what's the organizational chart?
I'm sorry, say that again?
So, it's 2030, AI has taken over. What does a film studio look like? Like, currently a film studio has a head, it has ADs, it has writers, it has a bunch of, like whatever you would need right now. But where do you see that going? Like, do you think that system, like that hierarchy of people is going to change, that structure is going to change, or is it going to remain the same and everyone will just upskill themselves?
So I think we always say it takes a village, right? Maybe the village will shrink, but I don't think upskilling is an option. I mean, it's not a choice. You have to do it. And there will, of course, be a pecking order, right? You cannot eliminate creators. I mean, today you get onto a film set and a director is the captain of the ship, right? I don't think that will change. I don't think that, KRAs may adapt, but people will still be responsible for creatives. People will still be responsible for execution. People will be responsible for monetization and different parts of the value chain. So roles, I think, will continue to stay intact, but they'll get elevated. And that's how I see it. But I don't think you can, or I don't see a world in which you can eliminate people, at least in my lifetime. I think it's, skill is still a differentiator, and it will continue to be. It's just about how well you use tools. You have Formula One race drivers. The cars are pretty much the same in terms of, how they are made, but it's down to the skill of the driver. So I don't think you can eliminate humans, but there will be certainly efficiencies which will shape how hierarchies are and how sizes of teams.
Yes, sir. Shobhu, so for you, the law around AI usage is pretty much in a gray area right now. If you had to write 1 or 2 rules that are non-negotiable for you as a producer, what would you write?
One is training on data, intellectual data, and of course, which also includes everybody else. I mean, all the creative force from actors to composers to everybody else. I think training on that data would be the single most important. Not to train on.
Yeah. Not to train on.
Yeah, restrictions on that and possible whatever safeguards around that would be.
That's it. Our time is over, guys. Thank you so much for sitting.